Hello, everybody. So it's an exciting topic altogether because AI has now become a buzz, and we have an esteemed panelist from different domains in healthcare to address the patient outcome that comes with the 4 Ps that we have been discussing from morning, which is prevention, precision, and all the other 2 Ps as well. So with respect to that, I would like to start the discussion with respect to how AI has been impacting the patient and the healthcare industry altogether. I would like to go with Dr. Vishal and Siva, where early detection has proven to help with cancer metastasis as well. And also there have been tests and screening that has been happening with respect to pre-cancerous biomarkers that are coming up as well. So how do you think AI will play a role in cancer detection, prevention, and also how's the precision as of now? Over to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Very good afternoon to all of you. I think at the outset, what I would like to share is that AI, when we talk about today, I think somewhere we have done a little bit of jumping of the gun in terms of overuse of technology. And I'll say that today industry is at 4.0, web is at 3.0, health is still struggling to come to 2.0. We have still not reached there. And AI is, while it's a hot topic and everybody wants to use the word AI somewhere into the discussion, I think the biggest impediment to the solutions that we are facing in India today is data reliability. I think we are not addressing the elephant in the room, that is data reliability, which is where I'm sitting with the state government and the federal government. And the biggest roadblock I see is data reliability to create a reliable algorithm. Now, this comes from clinical parameters, this can come from bioinformatics, it can come from various other parameters, but India is poor on data measurements from patient outcomes and longevity, I would say longitudinal data monitoring. So until this is sorted out, we have small data, we have good hypotheses, but we've not come out with substantial solutions because of large big data analytics, which are giving us certain noise. And I'm working with multiple groups now, some of the latest groups that are using pharmacological data. Just to give you an example, there's a US group that was looking at creating new molecules for drug discovery using artificial intelligence algorithms and language processing models. And while they were doing that, they discovered about 1,000 new poisons which have never been heard before. Now, the question that we come out in this kind of a context is, now everybody, while they were applauding them and saying that yes, this is a breakthrough, 1,000 new poisons that have not been heard before has been now open to the market, and those have certain implications to the society, certain implications to the crime world. The medicinal impact of it is minuscule. So yes, there are technologies, and so Karnataka has taken up certain steps. I'm at least, we are in the initial stage. So as a part of the vision group for biotechnology, I can say that from government of Karnataka, we are trying to create an AI policy framework for health in Karnataka. And that's our first draft that's initially in discussion right now. But we want to move towards understanding how can we accelerate AI, how can we build and improve the AI data reliability, and then start problem solving with good hypothesis, small solutions. This is where we are currently in this area. Having said that, AI is being used very actively in bioinformatics. Very actively. AI is being used in imaging, in cancer screening. Like I know of groups either in cervical cancer, breast or oral cancers who are trying to use image analytics for AI. We have radiomics today. That means a combination of, for people who are not aware about radiomics, earlier what we used to do when we want to find a disease, we take a biopsy in cancer, we find out what kind of a cancer it is. That means a pathologist takes the tumor, slices it, puts it under certain colors, and then after that magnifies it and sees it under a microscope. Today, what they are saying is, just by seeing the CT scan and zooming it in like a smartphone where you're zooming your camera photo, you can have more than 176 features of a cell that can be described. Using walk cells, using Harlick features, using various other combinations. That much amount of evolution has happened with regarding to the understanding of radiomics, and AI added to it is giving a big leapfrog to understanding what biology diseases, what is the biological behavior, including what is the genetic signatures. So yes, potential, phenomenal, great area. We all should be focusing on it right now, but I think with some frameworks and maybe putting some priorities in place. Thank you.
Audio.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So just to add what Dr. Vishal Rao sir has mentioned, I think he brought in important aspects of data reliability and radiomics. If you see, for AI models, it's all about garbage in is garbage out. If you don't train the model, right, with accurate data, what the AI models which we deploy might not be accurate. So especially in terms of cancer, right, no imaging modality is 100% accurate. So if you rely directly on one imaging modality output, you might have a good modality. You might not have good results when you really deploy it, right? So at Niramai, what we try to do to solve those cases is that, as Dr. Vishal Rao sir mentioned, histopathology or biopsy is the ultimate ground truth what we can get. So we try to ensure how we can rely on the data. So the veracity of the data is very important there. So as a startups working in the cancer AI space, right, it's important that we worry about what is the ground truth we are using in order to tell whether there's a cancer or not, in order to predict what is the chance of malignancy. Another point also is radiomics, right? It is not simply sufficient, right, to say whether the person is cancer or not. That won't help the doctor at all. It's important that doctor is able to understand. So present the doctor with some of the radiomic features, which doctor can correlate and then understand why the algorithm is saying, this person is having some kind of cancer. I think both what Dr. Vishal Rao sir had mentioned, right? I think those are very good points.
I just like to add two examples to what you said. I was interacting with an AI group that does work on imaging. And very interestingly, they were able to show, in comparison with US, their model worked better. The Indian model was working better than the US model. When they tested it, same on the Indian group. Now, what was interesting was this was about a simple chest X-ray for tuberculosis. I'm talking not of a big complex thing. Or look at this particular example. Now, what this Indian group did was, they homogenized. They took 2 lakh X-rays of simple tuberculosis chest X-rays and studied the AI model and built it on training for exposure. That means in a village in Tumkur, the exposure is going to be different. In Bengaluru district, the exposure of a digital X-ray is going to be different. And somewhere in between in Gulbarga, the exposure may be different in a standard analog X-ray, which is used as scanner. Now, between the three, they made multiple models like this and they created a very unique model with a sensitivity of 90%. Whereas an American one came competing with them and they had, on the best X-rays, the finest qualities, and they had accuracy, which is also 90%. But when they tested on Indian patient, the accuracy dropped down to 70. That's one area. And the second thing I think which all of us here should know is there are 4 stages of AI, And if you're looking at today, we are like what you said, garbage in, garbage out. We are at the master slave system, the artificial general intelligence, Alexa, Sree. We are going to move towards limited memory. Elon Musk has already done it with driverless cars. I went some time back to San Francisco. I saw where I had ordered in the receptionist, the robot came to take the order. Then I had the driverless car to take me to the robotic center. So it was a different kind of a world. That is limited memory AI. That's already started in. Now, what Stephen Hawking was worried about was that if you reach theory of mind or if you reach self-aware AI, is the danger begins. And he said, someday we will begin. And I'm remembering my lecture in 2019 when I was giving at Mumbai at the Tata Institute, where I was saying 10 years from now, maybe we'll reach there because army is already having this. And while I was talking that, 2022 July, Lemoine has been put on gardening leave from Google for cracking theory of mind. So which means that I think we are not talking about a distant future. We are talking about tomorrow, day after tomorrow, some disruption may happen which we will not be aware about. So I think we all need to be aware about the fact that disruption is going to happen much sooner than we're going to imagine now in the coming days. And I think it's for all of us here to keep a watch out on who's going to be which corner is that disruption going to come from.
But the question with respect to what you said about the disruption is that you rightly mentioned that healthcare is at the maybe 1.0 to 2 and not at 3 or 4. So how can we accelerate, or how do we do that is with accuracy, as you had mentioned, and the reliability of the data, and also the amount of data that we collect as well. So moving on to the next question that I would want Mr. Rajesh Khanna to answer is on the Hello? Yeah. So in India and also worldwide, cardiac disorders has been one of the top killers. And also nowadays we're seeing 25-year-old and even recently a 26-year-old who was walking on a treadmill just had a heart attack. And it is like very shocking to know this. So does AI have a role in prevention and also with respect to the prediction of such things that are happening? And how can we accurately monitor? There are different variables and things that are coming up. Like, how do we do that?
Yeah, great question. I think we are dealing with a disease which does not just affect an individual, but when it occurs, it affects the whole family. Even the cancer which we were talking, it's about a family. I mean, I have experienced that. So it's the family which gets derailed when something like this happens. And these diseases are occurring to us at a much younger age than we used to hear earlier. Like all of us would have come across a case where the person who had a cardiac event is in his 30s, mid 30s, less than 40, less than 50, very healthy individual, the one you were talking about, someone on treadmill just had a kind of cardiac failure. So what actually probably the digital or technology or AI can help is of course prediction, but predictive models are yet to evolve in cardiology space especially. But prevention and personalization, the 4 P's that we are talking here, prevention and personalization, yes, we are there. These tools, I mean, also offer great advantage of accessibility at an affordable price. Let me talk about Lupin Digital Health. At Lupin Digital Health, we have created some cardiac rehab programs, which we run over a digital platform. We call these programs as digital or remote cardiac rehab programs. Patients who have had a heart attack or who have high risk of getting an event, or even patients suffering from heart failure, where rehab is a class 1A recommendation. And doc, you definitely you understand what is class 1A recommendation, but we hardly see that being applied or being in practice in the country today because of lack of experts or qualified expertise in this domain. Hospitals do have intention of running these rehab programs in their centers, but then patient has their own problems, the logistic issue or multiple visits to the hospital, something as a challenge. So that's where we felt the digital technology can definitely solve a certain aspect of it. And we also try to address another perennial problem. Whenever there is a digital or technology being spoken, the first question comes to a doctor or a clinician is, are you taking or are you talking about taking away my patient? So we have kept the doctor in the center, at the center of the entire process. We have kept the hospitals as a part of it, and then we run these programs as a digital or remote model. What happens here? The first step for any of such programs is assessment, what we call as. So it's the awareness it all starts from. So the health coach must have complete awareness or understanding about this particular individual or the user. Same way, the patient or the user must understand where exactly is he in that disease continuum. And by having this awareness of education, how he can actually work towards bringing some behavioral changes. In the morning, we were talking about incentivizing or having rewards to people to change or bring those positive behavioral changes. We will talk about it. But then this is how we start. We start from the awareness level and then we advance from there in getting them implemented. We tailor, we personalize, we customize to the vernacular language of the patient so that we can have accessibility. A rural patient or like a Kannada patient probably in Aster Hospital today may get a coach who is talking in Kannada or Hindi or English there, but if the patient is a Bengali patient sitting in Aster Hospital, having Bengali dietitian probably would give them better understanding about their food habits, right? So we try to give them in a vernacular language. WhatsApp is another model which we have applied so that people, the most used application today on the globe, people can actually, so our platform is integrated with with WhatsApp, so people can chat or interact with over WhatsApp. And there is always the entire qualified experts, right, from a physiotherapist or a cardiotherapist, what we call, a cardiac nurse, a health coach, and also the doctor and the team who have the access to monitor this patient's health. So between two visits is where the event needs to be prevented, right? Today I am in a hospital, I got my prescription, I got my discharge summary ready, and doctor said you have to come to me after 90 days. What happens in these 90 days is actually these progressive disorders like diabetes, cardiac illness, is what we are trying to monitor the patient for. And while doing this, we are able to prevent someone getting hospitalized because we are able to detect some off-range vitals very early. We get the patient connected instantly to the expert, and then the treatment or the guidance is offered. Second thing that is also happening is prevention of an event. We also see trend line of these vital recordings. Patient is registering his vitals on a regular basis. Whenever there is a off range and it is becoming a trend line, like there is a pattern, regularly last 3 or 4 vital punches have been off the range as suggested by the doctor, we reach out to the patient and then bring the patient back to the doctor. So doctor also wants to take a timely, do a timely intervention or do an informed decision. So we provide both the things to the clinician. We provide him with the data, and we also provide the patient at the right time where he can prevent. So definitely the technology has got a role to play. Prediction is something which we definitely want to work for. Even how can we say, like one of the recent challenge which was thrown by one of the cardiologists, he gave us a few hundreds of ECGs and asked us to identify the gender and the age of the patient just going through the ECG, right? We could, our data scientists could do that to an accuracy of 85%, right? If the same ECG for an individual, the next challenge that we are looking at or thinking about is, if my ECG at the age of 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 is available, can then AI predict at what age someone can get into a kind of cardiac event? So I think immense potential, but yes, we have already begun that. Yeah.
So as you had mentioned about the healthcare and the industry that is associated, so Lupin is doing with patient with illness. So as of now, but when we take it into a general wellness perspective, I would like to get your views on how AI in preventative wellness is being transcribed. As we can see, the emergence of wearables and many other screening and imaging techniques that are evolving, and that has been easily available to the patients in their hands, starting from an Apple Watch to measuring heart rate variability with just the sensors in the camera, and all those things emerging. How do you see the preventative wellness space transforming? It's an open question to all the three of you.
Since we have been, I have been inside the hall since 10, and I got 3 nudges since morning. You haven't walked, it's time to take steps, it's time to flex your muscles, right? So I think this is what wellness is all about. How disciplined are we towards various, we all say that we know that there is a limit on what we eat. There is a stipulated amount of exercise that we are all supposed to do. There is also amount of sleep that we are supposed to take, but then we are also ambitious professionals, aggressive executives. Many times these are all, for some this sleep is also a luxury today, right? But are we aware of it? I met a patient who was recommended a program by a cardiologist. This individual is 33-year-old in a senior leadership position in one of the leading software firms. Weight 58 kg. 5.8 is the height. So BMI is green, dark green. No diabetes, no hypertension. And then he had an event heart attack. So doctor definitely said, yes, this is something has happened, but he was fortunate. He was brought to the hospital within 30-40 minutes of the chest pain, and he was, treated then and there. Post-discharge is where we met. The moment I met him, I asked him, sir, who is the patient in the home? And he said, I am the patient. I said, you look fitter than me, better than me. How come you are the patient? Then he explains, I play 45 minutes of badminton every day. Right? And every Saturday, Sunday, I also go for cycling, 20 to 30 kilometers weekend. And I asked, what changed? Then why are you in this situation? What went wrong? Family history, parents diabetic, parents hypertensive. No, one of the parent is hypertensive, but no such event till then. Then he talked about something which is very, very important. He said, Khanna sir, last 2 months I have been working on a very big project of mine. It's a 36 crore project for me and my team. And last 1.5 months, I have been sleeping only for 2-3 hours. And there the answer lies. He has a wearable device. It tells him every often. But what we do not probably use our wearables is for our sleep timing. Probably exercise, everything is there, but sleep is something which we do not train our wearables for. So if sleep is something, so sleep has entered as one of the primary risk factors as per ACC 2022, American College of Cardiology, as one of the primary risk factors for a cardiac ailment. Yeah.
No, very valid points, Rajesh, and I think I'll take it from there. I think the fundamental point he is trying to again allude to is that if you're fit, you're not healthy.
Yeah.
I think it's the bottom line, and I think I've time and again seen that in every context, in various examples like what you've quoted, that if you're fit doesn't mean you're healthy. You see n number of people who say I'm a teetotaler, I don't do this, why am I getting a heart attack, a cancer, or this? And various factors, sleep is one among them, but there are still people who sleep very well but yet get a heart attack. I'm just saying. So I think the overall thing, we don't know the final parameter, but we know that if you're fit, need not mean you're healthy. Okay. I also counter the argument that stress is a factor, because I keep telling people stress is a healer. So for example, when we were going through COVID, we were betting inside my operating lounge that I'll have at least 2 stents, because everybody thought I should be, the currently considering that I was sitting on 2 government committees, driving this, looking at the hospital, managing this. They said at least 1-2 block to rahega. So I went for a preventive checkup. They said nothing is there. So I said, okay, still I can go on for some time. But the question was, again, reiterating to the fact that stress also can give out good hormones like endorphins, oxytocin. So it's wrong that stress is bad, because I keep hearing this IT crowd keep coming and telling me, oh, you know what, I'm stressed. I mean, I told them, imagine what my stress must be. If you're having 4 surgeries, 6 surgeries, 12 hours of working, plus after that OPD and plus rounds.
But you enjoy doing this. Right.
That's why the 30 crore target is the problem. I mean, I'm saying that, no, but in the end of it, I think the world is moving towards what is called as a health span, not a lifespan. And I think that's where the next generation focus will be. The next 10 years focus will be on health span and not on lifespan. And the one single area of preventive which is going to change the game is going to be diet, which is going to have all of these incorporated. I'll just take a minute to tell you all the biggest breakthrough that I'm seeing currently today, and we are hosting Bengaluru's Tech Summit in November, is the microbiome. Microbiome, we are all here sitting with 30,000 genes. That's what we humans have. But those 30,000 genes are controlled by the 2 crore genes which are inside our gut, which control our entire system. So your sleep pattern also I can tell based on the gut analysis. So today, if you look at military and other things, some of the UN meetings I've attended, people carry their own toilets because they don't want anybody to analyze their gut microbes. They can know every single thing about you, including predictive analysis about what diseases are going to come 10 years from now to you. That's the level of bioinformatics we have. Similarly, in ECG, we are having a lot of thing on heart rate variability to predict and plan diseases. So I think a conglomerate data will come up soon of creating a person's Janam Kundli or his health Kundli, whatever. And I think health span is going to be the focus in that. And again, it's going to come back to data reliability. And preventive is going to be a much, much bigger space than illness. It's going to be wellness that's going to be taking over. How far are we going to be able to predict some of these? We don't know. But I think seems very promising as of now. And I think I would put my bet into prevention. I would definitely put my bet. And the data that I have in oncology, in microbiome, is phenomenal to understand what that person eats, what illnesses he's prone for, what amount of serotonin, dopamine, acetates, sulfides are getting released, what impact it has on the brain, what impact it has on the immune system, heart, everything is being decided in the gut. So we've been playing with some of these data to understand in a preventive mode, to understand what can we do. And one of the things that we're introducing hopefully next month is the fecal microbial transplant. So if I come to know from your gut microbe that you have a dysbiotic gut which is prone for various diseases, I'm going to take the fecus of a normal individual, sterilize it, purify it, and then give it to you as a capsule, like a supplement. You will not even know, but that has got more curative powers than any of the other interventions you're going to do. And this is what we are currently working on. And I'm saying this is a whole interesting game for us for the future. I'll only add one quick other point with regarding to data sharing. Government of Karnataka has taken up another very good step. If any of you all have heard about RedCat, Vanderbilt University started it. We started working with them during the COVID. So they had a very beautiful data platform because there are so many researchers, innovators out here who want data. I mean, all of you all would want data, correct? So what if the government allows you to access data at a much larger platform of millions? And say, come up with your algorithms which will help you all develop something more better. That would be better than you going into individual areas, going through struggling with ethics committees, hospitals. And that I think would be the solution for future bigger algorithms. The government has to step in. So Karnataka government again has taken a lead to say that they'll create something like that, which is a data lake, which will be accessible to people under certain conditions. But that would actually accelerate the ecosystem of innovation much faster than any other place in the world. So whether it's images, whether it's heart ECG data, whether it is overall parameters, you could maybe get 10 million and you could be sitting on it and working on it. There are protocols that they're working on. Hopefully in the next couple of months, they should be able to come out with something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. So Shiva, your views?
So yeah, I think data. So if you talk about the data that is there, right? Human body is so complex, and when we talk about the AI models that our data is trained with, there are very few samples. So it's important that when we have the access to this large data, we need to ensure that it is continuously evolving as well, because we see the disease variants, right? Disease mutate. So how can we design AI algorithms, right, in order to not only predict the disease, but can we also estimate, can we prevent the disease, right? So that is, I think, the world is slowly moving. Previously, it used to be like, once you predict, what's the treatment I can do? Now it is more like, how can I even prevent the disease, right? So there are a lot of AI startups that are coming in terms of how we can estimate a risk of person getting cancer or risk of person getting some disease. I think that's where the world is slowly moving on.
That moves me to the next question of, like, with a huge amount of data that's been correlated, and also I come from a research background, and one thing that I was not able to answer to is the root cause of many problems. Let's say many cancers do not have a root cause, and also with 26 years old having a heart attack, and so many other things where we do not know a root cause to. So how do you think big data analysis and such technologies are transforming the spaces and the domains that you are in?
So if you see the big data analysis, right, with the data, we can predict what is the relation. But the data can also has its own challenges, because if you see the bias in data, the root cause or the correlation, what we might predict with the last data that we have, can also be erroneous. So if you see, there are many instances where we see people claiming that they can predict so-and-so disease from, from some image, right? But then they are not into the real clinical deployment, because later down the road they might understand it could be due to some inherent bias in the data. So yes, data. If you have the large data, there is a good chance that you can find what could be the relation or what the root cause of it. But at the same time, you should not avoid what could be the biases in the data that you have.
Yeah.
I think with regarding to the data systems that we are talking about today, and all of us evolving in our own data sets, I feel there's a great potential for us to segregate and understand individual questions. And I equally give importance to small data. Let's not run to big data everywhere, because our question forming is not happening. And I feel the question forming happenings, when I work with AI analysts and others, I keep telling we work on small data which builds us a hypothesis, then we go to big data. This problem with big data is it creates a lot of noise, which is not pertinent. And then it's like a wild goose chase. You're going on to something which is never relevant. So I think it's very important to have a hypothesis that is strong enough, and then chase it, and then put your efforts, money and time behind something that is tangible. Otherwise, you're going to be having a complete wild goose chase, and that's what's happening with many AI companies that are shutting down. They've started with the wrong question, they've not measured the entire thing, and it's the algorithm that gave them an answer, and that's when they started chasing those parameters. And we are seeing that in oncology, we're seeing that in general health also. I think hopefully the future will again, I'm coming back to the single denominator, data reliability. And like he said, that the benchmarks are changing. So we are in a constantly evolving data system where we'll have to work together with I think multiple groups, biologists, scientists, working together in multiple clusters, creating relevant questions.
Is it standardized format in India? Data, what we are talking, is it in a standardized?
So Ayushman Bharat, the digital mission, one of the biggest work that it was trying to do was related to data systems, to creating homogenized data.
Right.
Now, if you look at one of the discussions we had was, let's take up the TB elimination program. I mean, if any one of you all are aware, the national TB elimination program has been announced, and India has announced that we will eliminate TB by 2025. We've got 2 years left, correct? Now the entire country is sitting and trying to figure out, but 50% of the TB is still not diagnosed. So now comes the question on how can we bring in the world's country's best talent, the world's best expertise to look at. You've got 2 years left to eliminate TB from this country. Now that's not going to be an easy task, and that is where we will require proper data points, understanding homogenized data, and we've taken up this matter to tell, unless you get a homogenized data standard system, and which is what Digital Mission is trying to achieve, then we can talk about the next step. That means to use that data, and then after that use the sharing of it, and then build algorithms based on it. Otherwise we're going to go grossly wrong.
So with respect to the data that we have talked about, like having a data that is reliable is very important, and processing it and the outcome that comes out of it and then chasing to a big data, as doctor said, is also important for evolution of a very good data model that could have a higher accuracy is also important. So moving on, I'd like to ask you about the privacy. The previous session also had mentioned about the privacy, and doctor, you had been on government panels as well. And as companies working with health data, what do you think the decentralization of health data is in India? How is it now? And also, how do you think it could move in the future?
So I think the previous session has very neatly covered different aspects of the privacy. And as startup companies working with the healthcare data, it is utmost important that we try to restrict or minimize the data which is personally identifiable. So because most of the AI algorithms, if you see, they don't really require the personal data, right? So it's important to decentralize the data or de-identify the data and create restrictions at different levels so that only few people in the company might be knowing what is the personally identifiable information, and most of the AI analysis or that might happen might not require this actual personal information. And as a startups, I think it's important that we adhere to the regulation that exists, like whether we are HIPAA compliant, whether we are following GDPR regulations. I think that is important. And data security is another aspect, I think, which we should look at. Because if our systems or our servers are not secured enough, then there might be a chance of data leak that might happen. And so there are ways we can protect them, right? Even while storing in the servers itself, you can de-identify and anonymize the data. So I think having stringent regulations from the data collection itself would be very helpful. And the second aspect is also, in India also we are seeing a lot of times when data is being collected, it's important that we should take consent from the patient and see how we are, the patient should know what the data is going through, right? Is it being used for the training, or is it being for improving, or is it being sold to some other companies, right? It's also important that as a patient or as a person who is taking a test, they should know. And at the same time, even if you see NHS and other healthcare systems, it's important that the patient should know whether AI has been used in their report generation, because if you don't explicitly mention, then it might happen that the report is directly generated by AI and might be overlooked by radiologists, or is it reviewed by radiologist and AI as well, or is it simply AI report? I think that kind of data transparency also have to be in place, and we are slowly seeing all these in the Indian startup ecosystem as well.
When we started, last year, the most common question, objection, or situation we faced is data privacy. Every doctor, every patient, every hospital was only asking about this. First you come or clarify this aspect, then the next move. And they're all talking not because I am trying to give this service, but they're all talking from their own experiences. They all had certain bad experiences from their previous digital or technology solutions. Someone has done something, someone has taken the data and disappeared, someone has misused the data, someone has transferred the data from one hospital to another hospital. All such experiences have gone through. So from day one, we said, at Lupin Digital Health at least, this would be taken with utmost care. And I'm sure all of us would have got since morning spam phone calls, spam messages. But look at the life of a patient, a cardiac patient, suppose, if I talk about, what kind of data is holding. It is one prescription paper, what you see in the hand of a patient. It carries 7 or 8 brand names of different companies. It carries diagnosis of the patient. It carries various vital information. It also carries doctor's information. One piece of paper carries multiple sets of data in that. And when a doctor or a hospital or a patient is asking for data privacy, it's a very valid demand from their side, we feel. So we take consent from the patient. We also give a consent to the hospital or the doctor upon where we draw a line. If we are into cardiac rehab, what exactly we are intended to deliver, and whatever data is required to monitor the patient's progression is what we use. The rest of the data is definitely masked. We from day one we have taken this as the pivotal thing, and probably I think all startups, if you are able to make those early steps properly, probably this data privacy from a question would become a very productive thing. What can be done with this kind of data what we have today? Yeah.
But the problem with that is when we as a startup, we are working with brain sensing technologies and we even dealing with brain data. The problem as a startup that I envision is there's no standardization with which I can follow and go ahead and do that, but it is completely customized and different for different sectors. So is there a way that government is doing something to handling that as well?
Data privacy is a double-edged sword. I think on one side, all of us here sitting on this panel, their data is being loosely used by somebody somewhere else, whether it is WhatsApp or Facebook or somewhere. So you have on the one hand, while you're assuming that you're completely having data privacy, absolutely no, there's no data privacy. That's the ground reality of it. That somewhere out there, our data are loosely being floated around. At the same time, when you look at health interventions and you're looking at certain aspects of legalized approaches to research and science and innovations, suddenly this data privacy comes up into an extreme mode to say that no, data privacy is the most crucial. And I've seen two flip sides to it inside this. That is, one aspect is, I think the owner of the data is the most important. Finally, whole story revolves around who owns this data. It's the patient. So it's the owner of the data who needs to give the permissions either for research or for innovation or for a new product. Now, I sit on ethics committees and chair some of them. So as a broad thing from the government's perspective, the ethical guidelines, and there are regulatory guidelines, but they come after the ethical guidelines. The ethical guidelines say that as long as the person who owns the data is agreeing to share the data, you can use that for advancement of science, and that's a good purpose. And this kind of an approach should not be dealt with in a monetary way. Because somewhere down the line, I'm trying to talk about a startup. Let's assume that you have a startup. I'm trying to encourage somebody to build a good science somewhere. And this should be done with the right spirit of what we call the temperament of advancement of science. Unless we do this, we are not going to be able to change this ecosystem of innovation. We're going to get too tight, too controlled. We're not going to be able to make that progress. So somewhere down the line, everybody is thinking that yes, we need to understand and not scare people about this data related thing, because somewhere it's going to be used, and that's the only way to allow people to do more research and encourage more people. Otherwise, at every step, you'll have ethics committee, scientific committee, hospital committee, then you'll have the regulatory committee sitting on you, and you'll not be able to move further. Innovation, research, science won't progress. So somewhere I think data privacy, yes, has to be looked into, and we are working towards understanding how we facilitate it. At the same time, there are a lot of interest from patients. Like for example, you've gathered 20 patients' data, of which 10 people, later on 5 years from now, you discover that you had one algorithm that you just got, which could have corrected them before. What is the implication of this on that patients? Should you be able to tell them that, look, we could have done that earlier, but we couldn't have done it? A lot of people ask us this question when you do genetics and other things. In the future, if something happens, will you be informing us about this? And these are questions we still don't have answers to, and regulatory still doesn't want to touch such tough questions at this point in time. Thank you.
So my question to you, Doctor, again is with respect to radiology generally, and also you had mentioned, Shiva, on how radiology is integrating AI and how it has been useful right now. There has been cases where AI has been more accurate as opposed to a doctor as well, with the recent studies that has come out. So there is this curious question that I have is, how is the future of AI in 100 to 150 years, future of radiology or healthcare in general is going to be transformed in 100 to 150 years? And do you think the typical question that's been asked by clinicians altogether when we take AI or such technologies to them is that, will I be replaced? So what do you think?
I'll close with two quick comments on this. I think if you look at, like I said, industry is at 4.0, web is at 3.0, health is at 2.0. Health is going to jump up. And as we are going to get more and more of these new technologies, we have to pace up with them. And I unfortunately say that if you look at today, the way robotics has come in, if you look at the way all of these new technologies have come in, people have to embrace them. Somebody asked me this question in one of the panels in Stanford, and I told them, I said, will the doctor be replaced by AI and robots? I said, yes, he will be. And it is the time for clinical scientists. That means I'm spending a lot of my time in labs. So the next generation is for future medicine. So you'll have pathology and radiology work together. That means a radiologist who is a simple radiologist is doing today interventional radiology. That means he's behaving like a surgeon. You ask me about an interventional cardiologist, he's a physician, he's going inside the OT. Whereas if you ask me about a navigation surgeon, he's a surgeon who's doing radiology. So this is already started. You cannot stop this from moving further now. Fusion branches are going to come much faster. Pathology will be sitting inside the radiology department in next 10 years. And in this whole bargain, will the doctor get replaced? Yes, he will. And I'm just telling on a lighter note, Stanford, many people got upset in that panel and I was the only happy fellow. I said, don't worry. I said, I will not do MCH in oncology, I'll do MTech in oncology, but I'll still be there. You don't worry about this whole discussion. Right now, keep going on. But do learn AI, do learn, understand the entire framework of all these systems, because technology has to be moved hand to hand. And there is never a better time in history for us to accelerate human healing than this time. So I think let's embrace technology, not get scared of it at this point. Thank you.
I think that was a better closing note for the whole session of AI and the evolution of the 4 Ps and the patient outcome. So with respect to that, we have had our like the esteemed panel talk about the precision with respect to the data that we collect, the accuracy, and also with respect to how all the 4 Ps can be addressed. And also, as Doctor mentioned as well, we will also have or be born with the Kundli with health data as well. And that's the way it's going to be transformed. And thank you so much for being a great audience and also the great panel as well. Thank you.